Chapter 201. The Officers. Han Man. How strong are these officers? Asked Lin Feng. He wanted to understand the potential of the army. The best way to find out was to understand how strong the officers were. Ordinary soldiers are all at the Qi layer. Guards are at the peak of the Qi layer. Sergeants are required to have broken through to the Ling Qi layer. It's even stricter for the lieutenants who are required to have broken through, at least, the third Ling Qi layer. Non-commissioned officers must have broken through to the 6th Ling Qi layer, and as far as the 3 officers are concerned, one is at the 8th Ling Qi layer and the 2 others are at the 9th Ling Qi layer. One more step and they'll reach the Zhan Qi layer. They are extremely strong. Han Man explained these things in detail to Lin Feng. Strength was the most important thing in the cultivation world, especially within the army. Strength was required when speaking to soldiers. It was impossible to rely only on one's military exploits. Strength was necessary to make subordinates obey orders. Even on the battlefield, without strength, it was too easy to get killed. Being inspiring and intimidating was the biggest challenge. Lin Feng, big brother, we stand alone as the Kai Xie troops. Even though the number is not as numerous as for the other parts of the army, their average strength is much higher than the other soldiers. Besides, the officer of the Kai Xie troops is at the peak of the 9th Ling Qi layer. It is said that he is about to break through to the Zhan Qi layer. How majestic, added Han Man. Lin Feng understood why the situation was that way. The Kai Xie troops were elite troops created by Liu Kanglan himself. It was impossible for them not to be the strongest unit within the army. The armor they were wearing was different from that of the other soldiers. They all had black and gold armor which greatly increased their defense. Besides, the armor had a red luster to it which made the soldiers look incredibly majestic. That is why Han Man and Po Jun wore the armor. It made them strike fear into people. One glance was enough to scare people away, as if the armor contained the swift and fierce qi of the Kai Xie. Lin Feng, big brother, you can ask the general to give you a lieutenant position so that we can fight the enemy together. Han Man's voice was filled with enthusiasm. Lin Feng had come to fight the enemy. If they could fight together side by side as brothers, they would certainly be even more inspired and motivated. Lin Feng. At that moment, 5 people were moving towards them. The one taking the lead was Liu Kanglan. When Han Man and Po Jun saw these people, they stood perfectly straight, slightly bowed and performed a military salute. General, officer. Liu Kanglan slightly nodded and said, Han Man, Po Jun, you two can leave. Roger, General, said Han Man and Po Jun while looking at Lin Feng with a mysterious smile on their faces. Immediately after, they left. Lin Feng, come in, there with me, said Liu Kanglan. Immediately after, he and the 4 people entered the tent. Lin Feng closely followed behind them. In the tent, Liu Kanglan and the 4 others sat down in different places and stared at Lin Feng, who was standing. Lin Feng was also staring back at them. Lin Feng looked at the 2 people on Liu Kanglan's sides. One was wearing a black and gold armor and the other one was wearing golden armor. The 2 others were wearing silver armor. Besides, these people's expressions all looked sharp and majestic. They were calmly sitting there, but Lin Feng had the impression that the Kai Xie troops' qi was filling the atmosphere. Lin Feng. This is the officer of the Kai Xie troops, Zhu Kai Xie. This is the middle officer, Ren Qing Quang. This is the left officer, Feng Yu Han, and this is the right officer, Lei Qing Tian. Liu Kanglan introduced these people to Lin Feng. Zhu Kai Xie, the officer of the Kai Xie troops, was wearing the Kai Xie armor. Ren Qing Quang was wearing the golden armor. The left and the right officers, Feng Yu Han and Lei Qing Tian, were wearing silver armor. Liu Kanglan had appointed these people to lead huge portions of the army, 300,000 troops in total. Their power and influence reached the heavens. Lin Feng slightly bowed in front of these people, but he was full of questions. He didn't know why Uncle Liu had introduced him to all these people. Liu Kanglan had left for a walk and had come back with these 4 people. It was clearly intentional and was no coincidence at all. This is Lin Feng whom I was telling you about. The one who has conquered Fei Fei's heart, my future son-in-law, said Liu Kanglan to the 4 officers while smiling. Lin Feng was dumbstruck. Liu Kanglan was surprisingly officially declaring that Liu Fei and Lin Feng had an intimate relationship and that he was going to become his son-in-law. Even though Lin Feng knew that Liu Kanglan was trying to match Liu Fei and Lin Feng, they were just friends. There was nothing intimate between them. Liu Kanglan's words made Lin Feng feel very surprised, but since he spoke that way, Lin Feng couldn't contradict him. He had no choice but to nod and confirm. I am curious to see what kind of man Liu Fei likes. The right officer Lei Qingtian stood up and took a few steps towards Lin Feng, and suddenly, an incredible amount of qi moved straight towards Lin Feng. That qi smelt like blood and death. Lin Feng, at that moment, had the impression that the person in front of him wasn't a human being but a demonic killing machine. His hands were covered with an endless amount of blood belonging to his victims. How terrifying! Lin Feng remained motionless. That insane qi was able to affect people's determination. The terrifying qi was extremely oppressing. Lin Feng didn't dare imagine how many lives he had taken to become an officer. Such a qi was monstrous. Huh? Lei Qingtian looked interested when he saw that Lin Feng was remaining calm. Immediately after, he took another step towards Lin Feng. He was now about 1 meter away from Lin Feng and his bloodthirsty eyes were staring at Lin Feng. He looked like a demon. Lin Feng's facial expression was still the same. He was calmly looking into these two eyes. With his determination, it was difficult for external things to affect or scare Lin Feng. Out of Lin Feng's body suddenly emerged a dense and thick battle energy. It wasn't as terrifying as the officer's qi, but it was piercingly cold and smelt like death. Even if it wasn't as strong as the powerful qi he was facing, it was still a brave move from Lin Feng. Boom! Lin Feng took a step forward. He surprisingly didn't move backward, but forward. After that step, only 2 steps were separating Lin Feng and Lei Qingtian. They both looked fierce and determined. The qi and the burning battle energy collided in the air. Lin Feng's long hair was fluttering from the wind created by the shockwaves. That entire scene was only about 10 seconds in length. Lei Qingtian's qi then slowly vanished. He had a smile on the corner of his mouth. Not bad. Not only didn't you move away from me but you came closer. I like that, said Lei Qingtian while smiling wholeheartedly. He tapped Lin Feng's shoulders which made his body shake. He was extremely strong. No wonder Fei Fei likes him. For someone of his age, having a strength which exceeds the 5th Ling Qi layer is really good, said the left officer Feng Yuhan while nodding and smiling. The atmosphere in the tent wasn't serious and solemn at all anymore. If I'm not mistaken, he has already broken through to the 6th Ling Qi layer, right? Said the middle officer Ren Qing Quang while smiling. Lin Feng slightly nodded and said, Officer Ren, you are right. You are not even 18 yet. Having reached such a cultivation level is quite impressive. Those who help us here are much weaker. You have unlimited possibilities with your talent. Too bad that you are not going to stay for very long amongst the army. Ren Qing Quang's voice was filled with regret. Talented young cultivators didn't stay within the army. All they were seeking was enlightenment on the path of cultivation. Even when they fought on the side of the army, it was just to gain practical experience and become stronger. Situations where life and death were at stake helped them to become stronger. That kind of cultivator would leave the army after having completed their training. People like Liu Kanglan were rare. Because of his function as general, he had many burdens and obligations. He had amazing talent and was constantly getting stronger even with these burdens. Being a general wasn't ordinary cultivation training. He had to motivate the hearts of the officers and the troops. Lin Feng's natural talent was much more frightening than Liu Kanglan's talent. He was obviously not going to stay within the army. From the 4 officers, only Zhu Kaixie hadn't said a word. He looked solemn and respectful. His facial expression looked like it had been frozen for 1,000 years. All right, you can go back to your positions. Kaixie, you can stay here, said Liu Kang indifferently. The 3 officers nodded and left the tent. Lin Feng, shouted Zhu Kaixie, who had been silent all this time. Huh? Lin Feng raised his head and looked at Zhu Kaixie, guessing that the man had something to tell him. Lin Feng, in the Kaixie troops, apart from me as an officer, there are 3 non-commissioned officers, 30 lieutenants, 300 sergeants and 3,000 guards. In total, there are 28,521 Kaixie armored horses. All our troops are elite fighters. Our strategy is to fight 1 against 10. Even though we have less troops than the other factions, if we attack, we win, said Zhu Kaixie in a calm and solemn tone. His words were poignant. Besides, he surprisingly perfectly remembered the exact number of Kai Xie horses they had. It was incredible that he knew the exact number. During battles, they could die at any moment, so it was difficult to establish accurate statistics. People would normally just have a general idea. Lin Feng, will you remember this? Said Zhu Kai-xie, which surprised Lin Feng. Why did Zhu Kai-xie want Lin Feng to remember it? But Lin Feng still nodded and said, I will. Then it's good. Lin Feng, every single member of the Kai-xie troops is an elite soldier. After each battle, remember how many we have lost. I will then know how many of our brothers have passed away. It will sadden me more with each death, so that next time, I will do my best and spare no efforts to greatly reduce the number of my brothers that have to die. Zhu Kai-xie was speaking from his heart. Lin Feng deeply respected him. Zhu Kai-xie was indubitably an outstanding officer who was like a brother to his troops, which is why he remembered all of them. Chapter 202. The Black Guards. Early in the morning, in the white fog, a bugle call filled the air and everybody on the military site could hear it. In one tent, there was Lin Feng, and he was wearing red armor which was the color of fresh blood. He raised his head and looked at the horizon. He said to himself, they have finally arrived. In the middle of the night, he had received the information that the troops of the Mo Yu country were already 50 kilometers away, but they weren't attacking. They were just setting up a campsite. The troops of the Shui Yu country couldn't afford to neglect safety, and they had sentinels making rounds and watching every single action performed by the troops from the Mo Yu country. That bugle call, followed by the sounds of the war drums, probably meant the beginning of the war. The sound was unceasing, but there wasn't the least bit of chaos inside the camp. Instead, everyone was extremely organized. The battle could start at any moment. It was impossible for the troops to panic because of that. A few silhouettes appeared and were all wearing red armor in Lin Feng's tent. Their faces were covered by their helmets, but their expressions were sharp when looking towards Lin Feng. Follow me, said Lin Feng indifferently. Immediately after, he left the tent and jumped on his dragon colt horse. The others also calmly jumped on their Kai Xie armored horses and followed him. The other Kai Xie troops looked at Lin Feng and the people following him. There were about 40 people. Their armor was an even bloodier red than the other soldiers, to the extent that it was dazzling to the eye. It looked like the morning sun shining on a puddle of blood. 40 people wasn't enough to make a complete squad within the army either. In the army, sergeants controlled 100 people. Lin Feng and the others galloped past them at full speed. A short time after, they arrived in a place where the two military factions were facing each other. In front of Lin Feng, there was a vast black ocean of troops who were releasing a deadly qi. They were the soldiers of the Mo Yu country. Before, Lin Feng had never seen a battlefield except on television in his previous life. When he saw it, intense feelings invaded his heart. In the middle of all these troops, one person was like a grain of sand. These hundreds of thousands of people, if they all used a bow, could kill a single opponent in a flash, even if they had broken through to the Zan Qi layer. On the battlefield, extremely strong cultivators were rare, so relying on personal strength was too difficult. That's why Liu Kanglan, back in the days, beheaded the leader of the enemy troops who was giving orders. Amongst the troops of the Shui Yu country, the left, right and middle troops were in perfect formation, but the Kai Xie troops were dispersed across the army. Concerning the imperial city troops which followed Duan Tianlang, they were in formation shoulder to shoulder with the middle troops. Liu Kanglan, Zhu Kai-xie and Ren Qingquang were at the very front of the troops. Brother Liu, the enemy is arriving and they look terrifyingly strong. It seems like they have over 500,000 troops. How are we supposed to cope with them? Asked Duan Tianlang while galloping towards Liu Kanglan. Duan Tianlang, do you think that the Prince of Mo Yu will directly attack us? Said Liu Kanglan while turning his head around and looking at Duan Tianlang. He sounded cold and indifferent. While two armies were facing each other, even if one was in numeral superiority, it was impossible for them to launch a direct attack. A war was about exchanging lives. Even if they won, the result would be tragic. Considering the reputation of Mo Yu, it was impossible for them to launch such an attack. Brother Liu, you always understand the enemy properly before the beginning of the war. I admire that, said Duan Tianlang while smiling indifferently. It's just that there are a huge number of possibilities. What about the princess? She is amongst the troops right now. If something happens to her, Who will bear the responsibility? I think that you should find a solution to win as soon as possible. The princess came with you, so it's your duty to ensure her security," said Lu Kanglan while smiling coldly. The troops were going to engage in close combat from morning to evening, and Dan Tianlang was asking Lu Kanglan to fight for a solution to win as quickly as possible. Not only did he make him bear the responsibility for the battle, but was also making him responsible for the security of the princess. That was ridiculous. "Brother, how can you talk that way? This territory is yours, I am a guest. Since it's that way, the princess's safety is in your hands. Obviously, if you don't care about that, you should remember that you took away the princess's personal guard," said Duan Tianlang coldly while looking at Lin Feng. "Duan Tianlang, you are facing the enemy army, and surprisingly you are still in the mood for boring conversations and refuse to assume your own responsibilities," said Lin Feng while urging on his horse. Under his armor, his facial expression was extremely sharp. He then said, "If anything happens to the princess, I will die, but could it be that you are forgetting about your own responsibilities?" When he finished talking, Lin Feng didn't wait for Duan Tianlang to reply and immediately urged on his horse, galloping towards Duan Xinyi. At that moment, Duan Xinyi was also wearing armor, but her beautiful eyes were not hidden by her helmet. In order to see, there was a slit for the eyes. Behind Lin Feng was a group of people wearing bright red armor. Their faces were entirely covered except for their eyes, which looked extremely sharp and cruel. "What are you doing here?" asked Yu Tianchen, who was protecting Duan Xinya on her other side. When he saw Lin Feng, he looked vigilant and cold. "That's none of your business," replied Lin Feng coldly. He then handed over a helmet to Duan Xinyi and said, "Princess, that helmet will protect your face. It's better for you to wear it." "All right, thank you," said Duan Xinyi while putting it on her head. In case of a sudden attack, that helmet would be much safer for her. "Lin Feng, you are my personal guard, stay here and protect me," said Duan Xinyi with a beautiful smile on her face. In case of danger, her face would be protected. At that moment, she was wearing the helmet, so only her beautiful eyes were visible. On the back of her horse, she looked majestic and heroic. Lin Feng was surprised and immediately nodded. "All right." Yu Tianchen stared at Lin Feng in an ice-cold way, but Lin Feng ignored him and gazed at the boundless distance. Suddenly, the army of the enemy appeared. Many people were mounted within the enemy army. A cloud of dust filled the air. They were about a kilometer away from the Shui Yu army when they stopped. "We are the Black Guards of the Mo Yu country. 36 people. Who dares to fight us?" said a loud and deep voice. The Black Guards of the Mo Yu country were like the Kaixie troops in Shui Yu. They were the elite soldiers. Zhu Kaixie looked calm when he saw them and said, sounding indifferent, he said, "Don't fight." The Kaixie troops looked expressionless. They had no particular feeling. Orders were like mountains. They only obeyed orders and were never swayed away by their personal feelings. "Don't fight," said Duan Tianlang while smiling coldly. He raised his head and said arrogantly, "The Kaixie troops are the elite forces of the Shui Yu country, and today we are at war. Surprisingly, you said we're not fighting. Why are you ruining the troops' mood? What is your purpose?" "Duan Tianlang, if you want to fight, then send your own troops," replied Zhu Kaixie coldly while glancing at Duan Tianlang. The Black Guards were all outstanding. Not a single person was weak. Powerful qi was emerging from their bodies. No wonder that they were elite troops. So that's how the Kaixie troops are. What a band of scoundrels. "Even though I am not talented, I will also not move back," shouted Duan Tianlang in an extremely loud voice so that everyone could hear him. In a flash, Duan Tianlang moved all of his troops forward. Every day, he found the Kaixie troops more and more disappointing. First, they hadn't opened the city gate for him, and at that moment they didn't dare fight. Lu Kanglan didn't deserve his nickname, the Divine Arrow. Amongst the people of the Celestial Academy, who is willing to fight? "I can send out 35 elite troops and let you lead the battle," said Duan Tianlang while galloping towards the students of the Celestial Academy. "Of course, if none of you wants to fight, I will send someone from the holy courtyard of Shui Yu." "I want to fight," said someone at that moment amongst the people of the Celestial Academy. A young man came out and energy was emerging from his body. "All right, students of the holy courtyard of Shui Yu and of the Celestial Academy are all outstanding disciples in the Shui Yu country. 35 elite disciples, come out and go fight along with that young man. Show them how majestic and prestigious our country is, said Duan Tian Lang heroically. How strong are these black guards? Asked Lin Feng with a subtle question. 36 people. The weakest ones are at the 3rd Ling Qi layer. 10 of them are of the 4th Ling Qi layer. 6 of them at the 5th Ling Qi layer. 2 at the 6th one and 1 at the 7th. Said Ba Dao in a low voice. Lin Feng was astonished. These black guards were strong. The weakest were at the 3rd Ling Qi layer. They were very strong. Surprisingly, there was even one at the 7th Ling Qi layer who alone could defeat 100 Kai Xie troops. Zhu Kai Xie had chosen not to fight. He obviously had a good reason. The Mo Yu country had directly sent such an elite formation of soldiers. This was a tactic of war. At that moment, the 36 people were already leaving. Lin Feng saw the qi that students of the Celestial Academy were releasing and said, "You cannot join the fight, you will all die." "Huh," said a young man while frowning and looking at Lin Feng. He then immediately replied, "Lin Feng, you and I are both military students. I thought that you were hot-blooded like me. I wouldn't have thought that you would be a coward." When he finished talking, that young man immediately galloped towards the black guards. When these black guards saw the Shui Yu people arrive, they firmly held their spears. When the Shui Yu cultivators arrived in front of them, they released a powerful qi and they all threw their spears which flew through the air at incredible speeds. At that moment, there were horses chaotically running around and neighing. The spears had all reached their destination. The hearts of the 36 Shui Yu cultivators. 36 strong and famous Shui Yu cultivators had just met a violent death. One spear had been enough. Lin Feng looked expressionless. He had warned them, but they hadn't listened to him. What else could he do? The 36 black guards took back their spears, went back in formation and shouted. The black guards invite the Shui Yu Kai Xie troops to come and fight. Chapter 203. The Celestial Sword Unit. The Shui Yu army was silently looking at that row of black guards. They were astonished. These 36 black guards were incredibly strong. These black guards and their spears were proud and despised the Shui Yu army. They could kill people with a simple toss of their weapons. When they heard the invitation of the black guards, the Shui Yu army remained silent. Glorious deaths, they deserve respect. Not all the students of the Celestial Academy are cowards who don't dare fight, said Duan Tian Lang in a low voice. Then, sounding inspiring, he said, amongst the geniuses of the Celestial Academy, who is willing to go and avenge your fellow students? Cowards who don't dare fight. Lin Feng obviously understood whom Duan Tian Lang was talking about. Everybody did. As you said, we are bound by a common hatred for the enemy. The holy courtyard of Shui Yu and the Celestial Academy are fighting as brothers. I heard that your son, Duan Han, is an outstanding genius. He has also come to the battlefield to acquire practical experience. I would like to invite Duan Han to regain our country's prestige, as our country has just been humiliated, said Lin Feng. Let Duan Han go and accomplish the heroic deed, said a person behind Lin Feng extremely loudly. Let Duan Han go and become a hero, shouted a person in the middle of Kai Xie troops. These voices were deafening to Duan Han's ears. Duan Han and his father were staring at Lin Feng. How cruel and sly. They had almost forgotten their original evil and malicious intentions. You just said, a moment ago, that dying on the battlefield was a glorious death, worthy of respect. Duan Han is not a coward. He is extremely powerful. He would not be scared and turn down a fight. No matter what the result of the battle is, it doesn't matter. It is glorious and worthy of respect. Therefore, I want to invite Duan Han to fight for his country, said Lin Feng firmly. Let Duan Han go and fight, said another voice extremely loudly. Duan Tian Lang was fixedly and coldly staring at Lin Feng. That bastard was putting him in a situation which he could not get himself out of. If I want to fight, I can decide myself. What is the point in putting so much pressure on others? Shouted Duan Han to Lin Feng loudly enough so that everybody could hear him clearly. Shut up. When Duan Han finished talking, Lin Feng shouted even louder. You and your father are really shameless. I put pressure on you to go and fight? You don't even dare fight. Since the beginning, you have only sent students of the Celestial Academy to fight because you want them all to die. Lin Feng was surprisingly verbally attacking Duan Tian Lang and his son in the presence of all the troops. Everybody was stupefied, but the students of the Celestial Academy, who were initially not reacting, narrowed their eyes. They became aware of how malicious and sly Duan Tianlang was being. Lin Feng, do you know whom you are talking about? Said Duan Tianlang, sounding extremely evil. He was the chief commander of all the army, and Lin Feng surprisingly dared to humiliate him. I am not under the authority of the chief commander, said Lin Feng coldly. Duan Tianlang wanted to speak, but suddenly a cold voice spread. Duan Tianlang, I let you enter the city for you to help us fight against the enemy, not for you to cause trouble here and act childishly. It was obviously Lu Kanglan. Immediately after, he looked at Lin Feng and said, You contradicted Chief Commander Duan Tianlang, and that is an offense. You go fight and atone for your crime with military accomplishments. Roger, General, nodded Lin Feng solemnly and respectfully. Immediately after, he looked in front of him and started galloping at full speed on the back of his dragon colt horse. He was closely followed by more than 30 fighters wearing blood-red armor. A cloud of dust rose around them. When the Black Guard saw Lin Feng and the others approach, they threw their spears at terrifying speeds which emitted whistling sounds as they pierced through the air. Powerful chi was emerging from their spears. The sounds of the spears piercing through the air spread across the battlefield. Break, said Lin Feng at that moment. Immediately after, all the fighters surrounding him took out weapons which diffused a resplendent glow and cut the spears down. Peesh, peesh. The crowd only saw that these spears which were moving towards Lin Feng and all the others at full speed had just been broken, and some had been split mid-air. What's going on? Everybody was shocked. How was that possible? Even though Lin Feng and his fighters were stronger than the opponents, it wasn't possible for them to be able to break those spears so easily. What sharp weapons! The crowd was looking at the weapons Lin Feng and the fighters were holding in their hands. They were extremely sharp. Go! After Lin Feng said that word, they galloped towards the opponents at full speed, and in the blink of an eye, blood splashed high into the air and the sound of cutting flesh followed by horses neighing filled the air. Ba Dao's blade moved through the air and released tyrannical blade energy. His strength as the 6th Ling Chi layer meant death for all the Black Guards. Lin Feng's long sword was dazzling as he attacked the leader of the Black Guards, who was at the 7th Chi layer. His sword twinkled and immediately pierced through the atmosphere, releasing an insane amount of deadly energy. In the blink of an eye, half of the Black Guards were dead and many of them were injured. Block. The leader of the Black Guards blocked Lin Feng's sword while his face turned deathly pale. Since when were there such strong cultivators recruited into the Kaixie troops? Invincible. In the middle of the fight, the Black Guards suddenly started turning around and insanely urging their horses to retreat. The whole Shui Yu army was dumbstruck. Kill, said Lin Feng. Everybody understood clearly. They all readied their weapons as they caught up with the Black Guards and gave them a bloody, violent death. Lin Feng on his dragon colt horse and the others on their Kaixie armored horses continued chasing the remaining Black Guards who were still trying to escape. At that moment, a strong and robust silhouette jumped from his Kaixie armored horse, roared loudly and stamped onto the ground. A huge crater appeared in the earth under the Black Guards, making them all collapse into the crater, unable to escape. Break. The leader of the Black Guards grabbed his second spear and thrust it into the wall of the crater. A loud rumble filled the air, the ground was shaking. A hole had appeared in the wall where the spear landed. The chief of the Black Guards wanted to escape through that hole. Stay there. Immediately, vines appeared and wrapped around the Black Guards, constricting their bodies and making them unable to move. Tyrannical blade. In the air appeared an illusionary blade which immediately cut downwards. Many of the Black Guards were struck. In the blink of an eye, only one of the Black Guards remained, their leader at the 7th Ling Chi layer. Since the beginning of the fight, only the time of one deep breath had elapsed. Arg! Shouted the leader of the Black Guards. His spear seemed incredibly powerful. He jumped off his horse and his body flew into the air. Lin Feng looked calm and solemn. He actually gave his own helmet to Duan Xinyi, so he hadn't been wearing one himself. His handsome face was visible and his long hair was fluttering with the wind. His body slightly urged his horse on. Immediately after, he jumped into the air. At that moment, an incredible amount of battle energy was burning all around his body. In the sky, an illusionary black sword appeared, a deadly yet divine sword. You attacked my comrades, which is a crime. I must kill you, said Lin Feng in a solemn and calm tone. His body was still in the air. He took a deep breath and his deadly black sword fell from the sky. Peesh! The black sword illusion fell down from the sky and cut the body of the black guard leader down the middle, and his body split into 2 pieces. He didn't even have the time to let out a horrible shriek, he was just silently cut into 2. Boom 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 boom. That attack had been so incredible that everybody's heart was pounding loudly in their chests. An illusionary sword in the air had cut the black guard's leader into 2. How powerful! Besides, the one who had launched that attack was still a young man. At that moment, that handsome young man jumped back onto his horse and calmly returned to the army. The entire army was looking at him and were frantically trying to get a better look. They wanted to see that young man more clearly. Wow! The sky was shaking. The Kaixie troops' hearts were filled with burning enthusiasm. It had been a long time since they had had that feeling. They hadn't thought that such a young man could awaken such feelings in their hearts. Zhu Kaixie smiled indifferently. He calmly looked at Liu Kanglan and said, "General, I see your image in him." Liu Kanglan turned his head and smiled back at Zhu Kaixie. "I haven't seen you smile in a long time," said Liu Kanglan, and then turned around. The Mo Yu army was surprisingly turning around and retreating. They had come for power and prestige but had to move back because of Lin Feng. "I am not as gifted as him," said Liu Kanglan discreetly to Zhu Kaixie, which made him shiver. Immediately after, he smiled again. Lin Feng's spirit was stronger and he had a higher natural talent as well. Lin Feng calmly returned to Duan Xinyi's side as she took off her helmet. Her long and delicate fingers moved her hair aside and looked at Lin Feng with a huge smile on her face. Lin Feng was bewitched. Her smile was truly enchanting. Only Duan Tianlang and his son had hideous expressions on their faces, especially Duan Han. Back in the days, he used to think that he was better than Lin Feng. At that moment though, he was weaker than Lin Feng and far from being able to catch up with his level of strength. "Lin Feng," said Liu Kanglan in a loud voice. "General," replied Lin Feng, "you are now a lieutenant. You are now in charge of your own Kaixie unit called the Celestial Sword, and you are directly under Zhu Kaixie." With the military merits of slaughtering the Black Guards and forcing the enemy army to retreat, Liu Kanglan obviously had enough to grant Lin Feng a lieutenant position. Lin Feng had just displayed how great his power was. Nobody was going to have any objections. Lin Feng gratefully accepts. Chapter 204. Assassin. Lin Feng galloped towards Zhu Kaixie and said with a respectful tone, "Officer." "Lin Feng, your tent is still in the same place. Now you are a lieutenant, so feel at ease within the Kaixie troops. You can do as you wish with the soldiers. If there is any danger, you can handle it as you wish, but I want these 2 back when you are done. If they leave, I'll lose 2 lieutenants," said Zhu Kaixie while pointing at Han Man and Po Jun who were behind Lin Feng. "Officer, does this mean we can join the Celestial Sword unit?" said Han Man while looking excited. If he could work with Lin Feng, he wouldn't care about his lieutenant status and would follow Lin Feng's orders. "No, return to your units now," said Zhu Kaixie. Han Man and Po Jun smiled wryly and said, "Roger, officer." After saying that, they smiled wryly while looking at Lin Feng and immediately went back to their units. "Lin Feng, these 2 guys, I still need them. Sooner or later, they will be under your command," said Zhu Kaixie with a mysterious tone. Immediately after, he added, "You can go now." "All right," said Lin Feng while slightly nodding and moving aside. "Lin Feng." At that moment, a clear and distinct voice emerged. Lin Feng turned around and saw Duan Xinyi waving to him. "You guys can wait for me here," said Lin Feng to Ba Dao and the others. Immediately after, he went towards the princess and asked, "What's the problem?" "There must be a problem in order for me to speak with you." "You are my personal guard," said Duan Xinyi while giving a sweet smile towards Lin Feng. Lin Feng didn't know how to reply. "Lin Feng, come with me to my tent. Chu Sao will make us some tea and we can talk for a while," said Duan Xinyi. Lin Feng remained silent. "You don't feel like it? Well, forget about it then. You can leave," said Duan Xinyi when she saw that Lin Feng remained silent. She looked disappointed, yet tried to smile. Lin Feng turned his horse around. Duan Xinyi nibbled on her lip and a bitter feeling invaded her heart. Usually, it was young men who would always chase her, but she always rejected them. She didn't even look at the handsome young men in the city. However, she was interested in Lin Feng, that frivolous and unrestrained young man. She started to have feelings for him. She had finally gathered the courage to invite him, and he rejected her like she did with all the noble young men before. "You guys can go back to the tent without me," said Lin Feng, who reached Duan Xinyi's ears. She then saw him turn around. A sweet and soft smile appeared on her face. Her grief turned into happiness. Initially, Lin Feng didn't refuse her offer. He was just ordering his troops to go back. "Princess," said Lin Feng while moving back to Duan Xinyi. "Let's go." Duan Xinyi's hair was floating on the wind while the horse galloped. At that moment, many people were following her. Lin Feng also closely followed alongside her and hadn't noticed that some people were evilly looking at the couple. "HMPH," groaned someone near Lu Kanglan. Lu Kanglan was stupefied. He then looked at the angered person and said, "Fei Fei, you have to handle things like this properly." "Handle what properly?" said Lu Fei while gnashing her teeth. Immediately after, she left. She was secretly cursing at Lin Feng in her heart. "What a pervert." "General, it seems like Princess Duan Xinyi is interested in Lin Feng. She'll become Fei Fei's rival in the future," said Zhu Kai-xie in a low voice. These older men were slightly angry at the princess. They noticed that Duan Xinyi didn't look at Lin Feng the same way she looked at other people. Duan Xinyi always smiled at people in a friendly manner, but when she smiled to Lin Feng, it was more than that. It was soft, sweet and tender. The first awakening of love. Tender feelings like water. Girls couldn't hide such feelings. Everybody could see them in their facial expression, just like Lu Fei. Lu Kanglan smiled wryly and shook his head. He then quietly looked at the silhouette leaving. The silhouette was wearing armor, but he didn't forget that underneath they were still holy and pure. As before, he was amazed. Ellipsis 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 ellipsis. Duan Xinyi's tent was tastefully furnished. It wasn't luxurious, but it was clean and tidy, which made it easy to set one's mind at ease and feel relaxed. At that moment, Lin Feng and Duan Xinyi were sitting on the floor by a hardwood table. "Princess, Master Lin, tea is ready." Chu Sao arrived in front of Duan Xinyi and Lin Feng and served them some tea. Lin Feng hastily took his cup of tea while smiling and said, "Girl, there is no need to stick with such formalities." Lin Feng wasn't used to being served by someone else. "Master Lin, you are the princess's guest. This is my duty," said the servant while smiling. She had two dimples appear on her cheeks when she smiled. She was extremely cute. She was very young, about 15 years old. Lin Feng was only smiling, but didn't say anything. Actually, Chu Sao was also a slave. She was already very lucky to be able to work for the princess. Besides, Duan Xinyi seemed to treat her well. Chu Sao respected Duan Xinyi but didn't fear her. Duan Xinyi was the farthest thing from a cruel person. "Princess, the battlefield is such a dangerous place. Why did you need to come here?" asked Lin Feng, who didn't understand why Duan Xinyi was there. "What was the point of having the princess on the battlefield? I've spent too much time in the imperial palace. I was breathing the same stuffy air every single day, so I thought that I had to see something else and decided to come and see the brave and courageous soldiers on the battlefield," said Duan Xinyi in a soft voice while smiling. Many people were dreaming of living in the imperial palace, but those who really lived in it had the feeling that it was like a prison and needed to see the outside world. "Lin Feng, do you like zither?" suddenly asked Duan Xinyi. Lin Feng slightly nodded and said, "I do. I will play the zither for you." When Duan Xinyi saw that Lin Feng nodded, she smiled and looked excited. At that moment, Chu Sao went and picked up an ancient zither. She cleaned the table and put the zither on the spotless table. It was a very cozy feeling. Duan Xinyi was smiling. She put both of her hands on the zither and started playing slowly. Lin Feng was looking at Duan Xinyi. She was beautiful, graceful and elegant. Once in a while, she would raise her head and smile. That smile was enchanting. Regardless of social status, her beauty and elegance sufficed to make any normal man go crazy. No wonder every single noble young man hoped to marry the princess. Such a beautiful woman, who on top of that had the status of princess and possessed a powerful blood spirit, she could tempt most men. Duan Xinyi started playing a melody which made Lin Feng imagine a calm stream running through a bamboo forest. Zither connoisseurs could easily tell what kind of personality and temperament a person had when they listened to them playing the zither. She was as cool as a mountain stream, like an orchid in the middle of a peaceful mountain. Lin Feng slowly closed his eyes and calmly listened to the wonderful music. He was feeling happy. Being with Duan Xinyi, he didn't feel like he needed to be cautious, he could relax. He felt joyful in his heart. Duan Xinyi, once in a while, was raising her head to look at Lin Feng. When she saw that Lin Feng was closing his eyes and seemed to be completely relaxed, the smile on her face was becoming sweeter and sweeter. Inside the tent, the atmosphere was calm and peaceful. Only the sound of the zither filled the air. But at that moment, Lin Feng, who was firmly closing his eyes while listening to the music, suddenly had a strange sensation. He suddenly opened his eyes. His eyes were completely black and expressionless. The world around him had become slow and he was now within his world of darkness. Without the slightest hesitation, he grabbed a dagger and slashed through the air. Kacha! His dagger ended up cutting an arrow down mid-air, which passed near Lin Feng's cheek. A strong wind was blowing against the tent and raised its heavy curtains. Immediately after, a silhouette flickered through the air like an illusion. Lin Feng could feel the danger incoming. Lin Feng raised his dagger again as he could feel a sword moving towards him. Lin Feng moved his dagger towards the illusionary figure, but it had no effect. Peesh! Peesh! Lin Feng's dagger arrived at the enemy's chest. But what shocked him was the opponent used his right hand to block Lin Feng's and used his left hand to throw an extremely sharp arrow towards the princess behind Lin Feng. The entire situation happened at the speed of lightning. Even though the opponent didn't care about his own life, they were determined to kill the princess before they died. An assassin. Lin Feng's heart was pounding. The opponent's arrow which he had thrown was much too quick. It had almost reached its destination and Lin Feng was unable to stop it. And if he didn't block it, Princess Duan Xinyi would definitely die. That assassin was at the 5th Ling Qi layer. That sword was extremely brutal and the assassin was determined to exchange their life for the princess's life. Chapter 205. The Prologue of Battle. 8 Strikes of Desolation. Without hesitating, Lin Feng launched his 8 strikes of desolation, but it only caused the arrow to deviate slightly. As if Lin Feng had anticipated this, he raised his hand at the speed of lightning and launched his qi forward to block the arrow. Peesh! Peesh! Lin Feng's qi only barely struck against the arrow to slow it, but the arrow still pierced through it. Xin Yi, dodge! Shouted Lin Feng furiously. Lin Feng's sword was still in the opponent's chest. Lin Feng released an incredible amount of sword energy inside the assassin's body. The assassin met a terrifyingly brutal death. Peesh! Lin Feng turned around and his face turned deathly pale. He only barely saw the arrow penetrate into flesh. But it wasn't the princess at all, it was Chu Sao. A moment before, Chu Sao had thrown herself in front of Duan Xinyi in order to protect her. Chu Sao! Shouted Duan Xinyi with a sorrowful scream. After that, a hole appeared in the roof of the tent and vines descended from the sky, grabbed Duan Xinyi's body and lifted her into the air. She is staying here, shouted Lin Feng. He jumped up in the air and slashed out with the qi from his long sword. At the same time, another silhouette fell from the sky. A long blade struck against the sword qi of Lin Feng and destroyed it. Duan Xinyi's silhouette, in the blink of an eye, disappeared from the tent and was taken away by the vines. Lin Feng was astonished. His face was deathly pale. What a skillful attack! Besides, even the weakest person was at the 5th Ling Qi layer. Lin Feng alone couldn't block all of them. An endless qi suddenly emerged from Lin Feng's sword and it was followed by a horrible shriek. The energy from the opponent's sword was completely dispersed. Lin Feng was furious and launched a lethal, unavoidable attack at the opponent. Boom! The sword qi caused the tent to explode into small pieces. Lin Feng looked around at his surroundings. He looked furious. When Lin Feng saw the opponents attempting to escape, he immediately jumped up into the air in pursuit. But at that moment a fist struck his face, sending him backwards. "Get out of my way!" shouted Lin Feng extremely loudly when he saw the armored person blocking his way. Lin Feng had been pushed back to the tent by that powerful strike to his face. "How is Her Majesty, the princess?" asked the person while looking at the tent. When that person saw that Lin Feng wasn't replying, they continued, "What have you done to the princess?" Lin Feng had the sensation that the assassins were already close to escaping. He had no time for useless conversations. He moved forwards and brandished his sword. Humph! The armored person smiled coldly and shouted, "Arrows ready." When they finished talking, a group of silhouettes suddenly came into vision and raised their bows. They were all aiming at Lin Feng. At that moment, a sharp force rushed towards Lin Feng. Lin Feng's facial expression changed. He knew that he was trapped. He quickly retreated and asked the armored person, "Was it you?" That person ignored Lin Feng's question and shouted in an extremely cold voice, "What have you done to the princess?" When he finished talking, he took a step towards the half-destroyed tent. He then saw that there was only a female's corpse, however it was not the princess, instead it was Cao Chu. Obviously, the princess wasn't there anymore. "Hand over the princess," shouted the armored person. His facial expression was extremely sharp. He slightly raised his hand and at that moment, the myriad of silhouettes pulled back the string of their bows ready to fire towards Lin Feng at any moment. Lin Feng suddenly smiled and laughed insolently. His two dark and expressionless eyes were staring at that person and he said in an ice-cold tone, "Not only do you plan to assassinate the princess but you also want to make up false charges against me, in order to kill me? I don't understand what you're saying," said the person while staring at Lin Feng in a cold and indifferent way. He then said, "How dare you mention the princess's life and your own life in the same sentence? You're thinking too highly of yourself. Even though your status of lieutenant was granted to you by Liu Kanglan, today, you killed the princess's servant and helped kidnap the princess. If you don't provide explanations, you will die here." Lin Feng was smiling coldly. How could he explain things clearly? At the moment when the princess was being kidnapped, they were all waiting close to the tent. How could they have not seen the kidnappers escaping? Besides, at the moment when Lin Feng was chasing the kidnappers, they had intercepted Lin Feng and stopped his pursuit. Of course, they had prepared this because they wanted to take Lin Feng's life. The fact that Lin Feng had killed the princess's servant and kidnapped the princess spread very quickly amongst the troops. An incredible amount of people were heading towards the princess's wrecked tent. In the blink of an eye, the situation became chaotic. Duan Tianlang had also come once he heard the news. "Lin Feng, the princess was kind to you. You are her personal guard and surprisingly you dare commit such a crime. Now, tell us where the princess is," shouted Duan Tianlang while staring at Lin Feng. Lin Feng couldn't provide an explanation. Even if Lin Feng provided an explanation, nobody was going to believe him. Duan Tianlang and the others had already declared him as an offender. As far as they were concerned, Lin Feng was the one who had killed Chu Sao and kidnapped the princess. At that moment, Lin Feng wasn't sure if Duan Tianlang was responsible or it was another person within the military. "Duan Tianlang, are you not the person at the origin of this?" said Lin Feng coldly. If it was really Duan Tianlang, that was really too shameless. The first arrow was actually aimed at Princess Duan Xinyi. If Lin Feng hadn't done his best to intercept it, Duan Xinyi would have died. "You will never stop until you're dead," shouted Duan Tianlang in an ice-cold tone. He then immediately continued, "I will give you some time to think. If you don't tell where the princess is, I will kill you as punishment." When he finished talking, he lit an oil lamp and then a deadly energy emerged from his body as he moved towards Lin Feng. Lin Feng looked cold and indifferent. A murderous light flashed in his eyes. If Duan Tianlang was really at the origin of this was a good opportunity. Why wasn't he killing him on the spot though and provided him with time to think about giving him an answer? This short time was enough for the news to spread to Liu Kanglan and for him to quickly rush to the location. Lin Feng didn't understand Duan Tianlang's intentions. Lin Feng, however, could not determine whether the princess was still alive or not. He wanted to go and look for Duan Xinyi instead of wasting time here. After all, she had been kidnapped and he was responsible for protecting her. However, considering the number of arrows aiming at him and the incredibly strong soldiers surrounding him, rushing to save her would have been idiotic. His life was currently in danger. He slowly turned around and saw that the oil lamp would soon burn out. The ground started to shake. An incredible number of horses rushed towards the campsite. The tent was completely surrounded by soldiers in an instant. "Duan Tianlang, do you think that you can act as you please here?" At that moment, a voice spread through the atmosphere. Liu Kanglan appeared in the air with his bow on his back. Behind him, the officer of the Kaixie troops, Zhu Kaixie, was closely following. He immediately moved next to Lin Feng and ignored everybody else. Lu Kanglan. Lin Feng plotted against the princess and did not protect her. She is nowhere to be found. Why do you choose to side with him? What evil intentions are you harboring? Said Duan Tianlang. I don't care who kidnapped the princess, but since such a short time has passed, looking for the princess within the campsite would be the best solution rather than wasting time here. She would not have been able to leave the camp. However, you have brought all of your soldiers here and created a chaotic environment and spread rumors. How does that affect the morale for our army? You wouldn't be doing this on purpose to cause harm to Lin Feng? Lu Kanglan's words surprised Lin Feng. As expected, Lu Kanglan was very experienced and proved he clearly understood the most important aspects of the situation. Duan Tianlang was an aristocrat and the chief commander. How could he not understand what was most important in this situation? In such a situation, the most important thing was to immediately search for the missing princess and not use his army to trap Lin Feng in an attempt to punish him. The fact that he had given Lin Feng some time seemed to have something to do with Lu Kanglan. I obviously understand that, but I have given him the time it takes for an oil lamp to burn, yet Lin Feng still cannot tell us where the princess is. Lu Kanglan, you are a general, punishing Lin Feng is your duty, but instead, you are siding with a criminal. If you don't move out of the way, then do not blame me for not showing mercy. Said Duan Tianlang in a calm and respectful tone, as if he held friendly feelings towards Lu Kanglan and did not want to fight. A smile appeared on Lu Kanglan's face as he said, inviting you to come here to fight our common enemy was a huge mistake. Duan Tianlang, you are a traitor. Kai Xie armored cavalry, are you there? Shouted Lu Kanglan furiously. We are. The atmosphere suddenly filled with the shouts of Kai Xie armored cavalry. The Kai Xie horses neighed and the atmosphere was filled with a deadly qi. Duan Tianlang's troops were chaotic and their morale was unstable. Lu Kanglan collaborates with Lin Feng, a criminal who has kidnapped the princess. He is clearly a traitor. They both deserve the death sentence by law. Kill them. Duan Tianlang then shouted coldly, release your arrows. When Duan Tianlang finished talking, an endless sea of arrows spread through the air towards Lu Kanglan and Lin Feng. Duan Tianlang had actually given his army the order to kill them. Kill them all, shouted Zhu Kaixie, who started galloping towards the army while shooting powerful arrows from his bow. Immediately, soldiers started giving horrible shrieks of pain. They all came from the soldiers who were surrounded by the Kai Xie armored cavalry. The Kai Xie armored cavalry were mercilessly slaughtering those soldiers. Duan Tianlang had attempted to kill General Lu Kanglan. The Kai Xie armored cavalry troops were furious. The Kai Xie troops had already killed a large number of Duan Tianlang's troops. Duan Tianlang was furious. In the blink of an eye, a civil war had begun. Everybody was filled with cold killing intent. What was going on? How could such a situation come about? It was because of Lin Feng. Nobody could control the situation any longer. Soldiers from the same army were fighting against each other and dying. It was as if everything had already been planned since the moment when Lin Feng entered the princess's tent, as if they were doomed from that moment. In the distance, a bugle call could be heard, but most of the Shui Yu troop could barely hear it. At that moment, Lu Kanglan and Lin Feng's faces turned deathly pale. The scariest thing about that bugle call was that it came from the Mo Yu country army, which was moving towards them to launch an attack.